Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO Scale. My name is Darrell Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 45 of season 2023. Can't believe I already have had 45 updates for this year. Don't think I'm going to make it to 50 like I did last year. But I should be having a couple more, so we'll get close. But this episode features some more ballasting at the Evanston Yard. So went through, I don't know how many canisters of Woodland Scenics ballast. I used the fine ballast gray for the main line and then a mixture of gray and brown for the yard. But I went through quite a few canisters. I'll probably say 8 or 9 canisters of ballast. But this is what it looked like before I got started. Just basically a lot of track, and it took quite a while. It was pretty time consuming. Surprised how much debris there was, by the way, in the yard after I removed all the cars. If you haven't had a chance, take a look at the 105 car train I used to pull all the cars out of the yard. But as you can see, the yard is empty, and here you can see I have the backdrop protection in place, and was able to do some painting of the track, rust from the side and railroad tie brown from straight down. I had just enough brown spray paint to finish this, but I am completely out now. I use the True Color spray paint. I think I'm going to try to go to Lowe's today and see if I can't get a match on just regular matte spray paint. I'm tired of paying $12 for 4.5 ounces when I noticed that you could get 12 ounces for $7 at Lowe's of just regular Krylon. So anyway, I'm going to try and do that today. And then you may be wondering what the canisters of ballast are doing on the track right now. It's not trying to ballast by osmosis. Instead, it was just some weight to hold down the track. I pulled all the spikes out and glued the track down at each of the spots. And there were a couple spots where the track was up off of the roadbed, so I wanted to make sure I glued that down. So anyway, the canisters were used to hold it down. It would be nice if you could ballast through osmosis. Just leave the canisters on top of the track and come back the next morning and it's all ballasted. That would be cool. One other thing I did was I used a black paint to paint the edge there, because I kind of had a little bit of an issue here. I'm going to figure out what to do here, where there's a little light brown, almost white, because I had put some plaster there. So I decided this time to go ahead and paint it ahead of time so that we could hopefully not have that issue, and I think it worked out pretty good. Now, this is after I had sprayed it with wet water and some diluted glue, 50% glue, 50% water, Elmer's glue, and I used just the regular glue all. So this is the next morning, so it's had to pop maybe 16, 18 hours to dry. Not enough time to dry completely. One thing, I always have to be really careful not to touch it too much until it's completely dry. I do usually move the turnouts while it's still not completely dry, just so that when it is completely dry, it's not really stuck in place and I can move them. But as you can see, it turned out pretty good. I did have an issue here. So I sprayed too much glue on this part, and the glue seeped under the protective covering and had some issues when I took the protective covering off. Thought about replacing that backdrop, but turns out I was able to just kind of put some things there to kind of hide it. Now I did really, I thought I had the protective cover back far enough, but I really missed it there. So I had to go back to a couple other places, which is alright. I wasn't too concerned about that. But I did need to do something about that big, huge gap there. And again, the black paint helped. So I'm going to have to go back somehow and figure out a way to get that painted between the gravel and the fascia. Someone mentioned that they use wax paper. I thought that was a good idea. So I went ahead and did that on this little section here. Now one thing I was really concerned about using wax paper or something is the I'm worried about, you know, taping it to the backdrop. Here I'm pinning it, and you can see here also how wet the gets. So you definitely need some kind of protection. But anyway, worried about taking it off. I use pins there in locations that could not be seen when it's all done. All right, now you may be wondering what the heck are we looking at this throttle for. So I have my throttle set to 2 locomotives. One is 98. That's the consist for the 105 car train. But then I have the last DPU, 9702. I have it on a separate throttle. So I'm trying to simulate how the conductors or the engineers, I should say, on the actual trains handle all of the cars and the slacking and bunching up and so forth. I wanted to simulate that and see if I can get this 105 car train down the Helix, because I need to get these cars back to the yard. So instead of going straight into the yard, I went around the layout again. And I'm going to see if I can get through this train down the Helix without it derailing, using what some of the engineers shared on their comments. So I have 5 locomotives, 3 at the head, and then 2 DPUs mid-train, but they're not together, so it's, I guess, a 3-1-1. And the very last one I have on a separate throttle. So I'm going to use that to kind of slow that one down a bit as it goes down the Helix. So here we are coming up. This is just coming up on Peru, and the entrance into the Helix going towards Green River. And here we are at the Helix coming down. I have to say, I have a lot of respect for engineers. Now, as we're coming in, I notice I have a 25 and 23. I'm leaving it at that right now. I'm not changing it yet because I wanted to wait until the whole train got into the Helix. But anyway, I have a lot of respect for the engineers who have to do this. I thought it was all controlled by computers, but from what they were sharing, that's not the case. The engineers basically have separate control of all the locomotives throughout the whole train, and so they, in fact, have to do that themselves. So I was pretty impressed by that, and have a lot of respect for the engineers and the way that they're able to handle that. That's a lot of responsibilities to be able to control that, especially going through grades. Now here I kind of got up on a stool here. I kind of want to make it possible for you to see the entire Helix, especially the transition from the upper level down to the second level, where there's actually a crossover to balance out the crossover at Curvo. So you might want to pause it at that point if you really are a little confused, and you can kind of see how it actually occurs, where you have a crossover here to balance out the crossover at Curvo. All right, so the whole train is on the Helix now, and we're coming down. Now this is the point where it starts to derail. Okay, once the lead of the train gets on the flat, here you can see I have the last DPU set down to 21, so it's 4 notches or 4 percentages lower than the lead locomotives. All right, so here it is, and I'm checking the couplers because I wanted to make sure that the coupler was taut here, which would indicate that that there's not any pushing. I don't want it to be too taut, otherwise it's going to string line. But it has to be taut enough so that you don't have it pushing and having the accident that I had last time. I also checked the wheels of that last locomotive, make sure that it wasn't slipping. So if the wheels were going slower than what it was traveling on the locomotive, then I knew that that was slowing down a little bit too much. Didn't want it to be so slow that it was sliding on the rails. All right, so far we've made it further than last time. I think it was right around here or a little bit previous to this that it actually derailed. Everything looks fine on the staging yard. Still no mishaps. And now the last DPU here, which is set a little bit slower than the rest. Now that we're at the bottom, I'm going ahead and I'm putting it back to equal to the other ones. Because once we go past the staging yard, then we go back uphill at about 1% grade. So all locomotives are out of the Helix. Got to make sure we get the entire train down. And I think the end of the train's coming up here pretty soon. A couple more cars. Almost there. All right, so success all the way down the Helix with 105 cars. In fact, it basically went all the way around without any derailments or anything. All right, I'm not going to show you the whole trip. You just have to take my word for it. But we did make it all the way around. But here we are now back at the Evanston Yard, and we are now pulling this 105-car train back into the yard, delivering all the cars back to where it started. Definitely looks a lot better ballasted. Been really happy with how much better this whole area looks with the track being painted and ballasted. It'll be a lot of fun too once I come back a second time around and start adding details, painting the buildings, weathering everything. I'm not going to show you the whole process, but it did kind of take a while once I got the train here. To this point, then I had to do a lot of course, uncoupling and moving all the cars into the proper track. But it did make it all the way 9.8 scale miles with 105 cars with no derailments, no uncouplings. So this is what it looks like today, Sunday, December 10th. So this is what I've been working on the last few weeks, all this area here. Upper level and the lower level. Getting close to being done with this whole room. Now, one thing I like about getting this done is getting the fascia painted and making the whole room look a lot more finished. But here you can see how it all looks. Have most of the seams hidden. Have a tree that's knocked down there. Now I was probably was thinking about using scale trees to replace these, but I didn't have any more of the sagebrush or whatever that they use for the armature. So I went ahead and put these woodland scenic ones back in. I might just keep those. I would have to paint the trunks a little bit more of a grayish color rather than brown. There's the tree that's knocked over. And maybe do a little extra work to make it look a little bit more realistic. So I may keep them there. Here you can see the turnouts. Only a lot of track being ballasted, but only 2 turnouts. Need to use some rubber cement to glue that seam down a little bit there. I think we'll need to put a tree there too. But I think it's turning out pretty good. It's kind of interesting when you get to what it looks like without any ballast here, and then compare it to what it looks like with ballast. And to me, it's a huge difference. And I know a lot of people don't ever get past this stage. They have a hard time. They're figuring they just want to do operations. They don't care about the scenery and stuff. They just put the track down and then so that they can do the operations. But I tell you what, it's a lot more fun doing operations for me if the looks if it's scenic and looks realistic. Definitely adds to the fun. This is what I need to do yet. Hopefully this week. Not as much track to ballast, but there's 13 turnouts. So the actual ballasting shouldn't take too long, but getting the turnouts back to working after it's all dry, that may take a little bit longer. But I think I got that figured out pretty good as far as how to get that done. And then the next week after that, I'll do this little part here. This will be not very much ballast at all. This shouldn't be too bad, but I have to do the backdrop too. And it's going to be a bit of an issue as far as it is a hard reach. So that's a long ways to reach. So we'll see how that turns out. But then this whole room will be done as far as basic scenery and ballast. So definitely looking forward to getting to that point. And again, my goal is to have it done by Christmas. And I do have a holiday operating session coming up between Christmas and New Year's. So it'll be fun to have a new operating session with all this additional track being done. Let's watch some trains running through this newly scenic area. Here we are coming in towards Evanston. Here's the UTLX repair facility. And then this is the area I've been working on most recently. Been working on this probably all fall and into December. Really happy with the way the backdrops are turning out here. So we go past the engine facilities through the control point there for the entrance into the yard. That looks pretty cool. Sorry about the vents being all asunder there on the roof. I always put them on and then I bump it and they all come off. I haven't glued them down because I need to paint the roof yet. So, this looks good. Sorry to brag there a little bit, but definitely like the way the main line sticks out with a gray ballast compared to the ballast of the yard. And then now you have the transition back to just the plywood. So this is what it looks like ballasted. And this is what it looks like not ballasted. So all of you out there who don't have your track ballasted, you need to at least get it painted. But ballasting, it's a little intimidating, I think, sometimes, but it definitely makes a huge difference. I'm going to try and see if I can get a road to go into the backdrop right there where the road's going to be. And then for the entrance into the furnace room, I want to get a backdrop that's got an overpass over a track. Because I want the backdrop to actually go across that gap there. That could be interesting to see how that comes out. Well, thanks so much for watching, everyone. That's it for this update. Have a great week, everyone. See you next Sunday. Take care, everyone.